Howdy, I'm Grey Pilgrim. Well, it's supposedly spring, and the weather is supposed to be getting better, but it isn't. It's cold and wet outside. I need to go haul in some firewood and light the fire again, and dang it, I should be out plowing and planting right now. It just feels wrong to be sitting around waiting for the world to dry out. Anyway, I was going to talk about something today. Now, I'm no expert on this particular subject. If you want an expert, two suggestions. One, Garrett Woods over at 11 Bang Bang, or Duke Frazier at Duke Frazier Productions. Both know far more about this than I do, this particular gun. What gun? The 1873 Colt Single Action Army. This one is a Army San Marcos clone in 3220. Now, what is the 1873 Single Action Army? Well, in 1873, Colt, I guess, introduced it, or it was adopted by the Army. I'm not sure about the dates exactly. This is the peanut gallery version of it. Anyway, at the time, the Army was equipped with the Smith & Wesson Schofield revolver, which is a pretty interesting revolver, and I wish I had one. Now, as I recall, the rim on a Schofield cartridge is slightly wider than the rim on a Colt. And so you could actually fit 4 Schofields into a Colt Single Action Army and they'd work. But you could not fit 4 Single Action Army 45 long Colts into a Schofield because the case is a little bit longer. So anyway, and of course this particular difference made for logistic nightmares in the Army, because the quartermaster would requisition some ammo and the case shows up and everybody has Schofields and 45 long Colts shows up in the orders. Just then the Indians attack. That's the way things usually work with the Army. Anyway, I like the 45 long Colt. I like this design. I could never find a 45 long Colt to one that I could afford that fit my needs. This came to mind because I was over at my local gun shop yesterday, and one of the guys there said, "Hey, come on over here, Pilgrim." And I took a look at what he had to show me, which was they were helping an estate get rid of a bunch of guns, and they had not 1 but 5 beautiful single action armies. The cheapest one was $2,600. The most expensive was over $4,000. They had everything from engraved ones to cased sets. Oh gosh, it's just beautiful, beautiful guns. But those prices reflect the way those guns cost these days, because they are that expensive. Like I said, this is an Army San Marcos clone, and it works. It's nice. 3220 is kind of a hard cartridge to find these days, but I've got a few of them, and I've taken it out shooting, but it's not exactly my favorite. By the way, this particular cartridge and gun was the first gun that this fellow, who is the expert on the 45 long Colt and the Single Action Army, he wrote that his very first gun that he was handed was one of these in 3220. Elmer Keith is the god of the Single Action Army. By far. He was a legendary gun writer. By the way, he also worked as an inspector for the Army during World War II. And if you look, especially things that came through the Ogden, Utah proofing house, and if you see an EK initial on a, I don't know, what is it, M1 Garand or a carbine, I forget which ones went through there. But that EK meant that it was inspected by Elmer Keith. And that would be a nostalgic, wonderful find, I would think. You know, I don't have one, but it would be kind of cool to have. Anyway, I've read him for years. He died many years ago, but he was a legendary gun writer for the gun magazines, and he developed long-range rifle shooting. Revolver shooting for hunting. He developed, the 41 Magnum. Worked on the 357 Magnum and the 44 Magnum. He was known for loading hot loads into his single-action armies, much hotter than they were designed for, and I'm sure he blew up a few. But he was an early designer of some of these hot cartridges, and his work has gone on from there. He was well respected within the gun community. Anyway, I love the single action army. It is just it is a gun of the American West, and it's and some say it's the gun that won the West. Well, maybe, but I think the Winchester actually wears that crown. But this is a pretty darn nice gun. If you're not familiar with the single action, the way it works, you put it into half cock, open this gate, spin it around, fill it full of rounds, close the gate, put down the hammer, and then when you want to shoot, you've got to actually cock it each time. It's single action. It does not self-cock. But this has 4 clicks as it goes back. This is very much like a Colt single action army with one difference. The main arbor for the cylinder, there's a little bearing that's on the arbor hole. It's a ring-shaped bearing that spins with the arbor and with the pin. And so when you're taking the pin out, it spins with the pin. This one is just fixed directly to the cylinder. And because of that, it's a bear to take this pin out, which I've never done because it's such a bear. And this is actually, I mean, if you look, the color case hardening on this is beautiful. It's a nice looking gun, and I just don't want to ruin it with scratch marks from a screwdriver or the like. So, you know, when I want to clean it, I just immerse it in ballistol and moose milk and scrub, but I do not take it apart. You know, I'm funny that way. I like to keep things looking pretty, because around me they don't stay pretty long. Anyway, single action army, wonderful gun, a nostalgia of the Old West. Heck, when I was a kid, I had a cowboy hat, a couple of cap guns that looked like single action armies, and I was watching Hi-Yo Silver and just loving the heck out of it. I'm of that age. To me, the old cowboy westerns, the daytime ones, the old reruns of Roy Rogers and the like, just that's what I grew up on. And Daniel Boone and Davy Crockett and all of them, you know, all of those old westerns. Do you remember Maverick? Maverick was superb. Was one of the best commentaries on the human condition ever done, in my opinion. If you're not familiar, go back and look up Maverick. I'm sure you can get it on your streaming service somewhere. Just pull up an old episode. Yes, it's in black and white, and yes, it's a little bit stilted by today's standards. You know, nobody blows up. There's no CG. It's just good acting. Anyway, on that political note, happy trails.